outside of football, I mean, now that I've finished football, I've had the chance to reflect really on how football has helped build up my kind of toolbox of mental resilience that I've got. I've got 2 children, and my husband works away most of the time, so a lot of times, from week 1 of having 2 children, I was on my own with them, and you got to get on with stuff, and you've got to find out a way of figuring things out to be able to think, right, how do I want to react? So having that kind of poise, that little moment where you can kind of digest a situation to be able to react in a pretty kind of responsible and relevant way, which often as a mum or as a parent, you kind of react in a very emotional way. So I'm not saying I'm not emotional, but I'd like to think that I do have that poise and that calmness to be able to react in a relevant way and a positive manner.